Fear, an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain, or a threat. During the HIV and AIDS pandemic, the great Princess Diana once said, "HIV does not make people dangerous to know, so you can shake their hand or give them a hug. Heaven knows they need it." Sadly enough, we cannot share those words for someone who has contracted COVID-19, as we will learn throughout my presentation of informing you as to why HIV is harder to contract and it has a lower death toll than the COVID-19. So my three statements today, or my points that I'm going to share, are the transmission of HIV. The second will be the transmission of COVID-19. And then lastly, I'm going to close it out with the prophylaxis of HIV and then the lack thereof for COVID-19, solely because we are just now getting to know this new coronavirus. Confucius once said, "Real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance," which is why my goal today is to inform you guys why HIV is less dangerous than COVID-19. And my first point and my first transition of this goes into HIV transmission. Now, the AIDS Health Foundation, as well as WHO, the World Health Organization, have provided us with some very fine details as to why and how one can contract HIV, which is not airborne. Now, the three ways that one can contract HIV start with this. The first one is unprotected sex, meaning you don't have sex with a condom or any other contraceptives that one may use through the practice of sex. The second one is sharing needles. So you can infect someone if you are positive, you poke yourself, do whatever it is that you do, tattoos, what have you, and then you share that with somebody else and now they also have HIV. And this is all proven through WHO and AHF, both nonprofits that are very, very reputable in our society. Then they go on to teach us about debunking the myths of how you get HIV, which is not by shaking someone's hand, it's not by sharing a drink, it's not by being in the same pool as somebody, or contact surface like a water fountain or a toilet seat. These are all myths, and they have been debunked by the AIDS Health Foundation as well as the World Health Organization. A big, large topic that everyone is speaking of right now are healthcare workers, correct? Where how can somebody that is treating somebody with HIV get contracted? And here's how it happens. If someone gets stuck by a needle that is infected with HIV, that is the only way a healthcare professional will contract the disease. Now, the CDC has proven that it's less than 1% of cases that have happened through a healthcare worker that got HIV through an infected needle. Kind of astonishing, right? Now, let's look at my second point, which is the transmission of COVID-19. According to the CDC and WHO, the way you get transmitted is people to people through respiratory droplets and contact routes, meaning that if we are less than 6 feet away and I cough and I sneeze near you and I am infected, the other person will also now be infected because of the respiratory drops. Also, if we contact a surface and we touch it after touching our mouths, then the next person that touches that same surface and then they touch their mouth, that's how they are going to contract COVID-19, unfortunately. Which is why the World Health Organization strongly recommends the 6 feet of distance. Also, the CDC backs this up. And making sure that you practice safe hand washing your hands. If you're not around a sink and soap and water, you can use hand sanitizers as a precautionary until you are able to go ahead and properly wash your hands. Also, there are people that are asymptomatic. These asymptomatic people do not know they have COVID-19 unless they are tested. So they are strongly recommending that everyone gets tested, so that way the people that can carry it and aren't showing symptoms aren't giving it to other people that are now causing more harm and deaths and increasing those rates. Again, the conversation of health workers. As we learned, HIV is less than 1% for a healthcare worker who is treating someone with HIV to be exposed and contract HIV. Sadly enough, the CDC has found that 19% of cases from healthcare workers are getting it. So that's 18% more than HIV, proving that COVID-19 is more dangerous and is not comparable at all to the COVID-19. I recently tested negative for COVID-19, but 3 weeks back, a little before school started, our summer session, I actually had tested positive because a friend got it and I didn't follow the gatherings rule, and so we hung out. And then I contracted it and I was getting headaches. I lost my sense of smell. These are all things that are not fun, which is why I strongly recommend that you follow these professionals and skilled, trained professional doctors and scientists that are telling us what to do to avoid this virus. Now, to kind of state, the World Health Organization at the end of 2019 concluded with the statistics that HIV and AIDS are living within 30 million people around the world. With that, there's a 690,000 death toll that happens with HIV, and that's with a span of at least 3 to 4 decades, correct? So it's been for a while, and there's 690,000 deaths today, as of last year. COVID-19 has a little less than a year here around the world, since we found out about it probably in January. And then we find out through the info.com that 17 million people are infected around the world with a 675,000 death toll, which is just 15,000 shy from HIV that's been around a little bit longer. Or it's actually safe to say that HIV's been around a lot longer than coronavirus 19. So that brings me to my third point, the prophylaxis of HIV and the lack thereof of prophylaxis for coronavirus COVID-19, because we are just now getting to know it. You have PrEP for HIV. If a lot of you guys actually would want some more information on this, you can actually contact me directly, and I would be so happy to share this information. And it is a prophylaxis, and it is a way to protect yourself for somebody that has HIV and that you would want to build a relationship with and be happy, right? Unfortunately, we don't have that same resource yet for coronavirus because we are getting to know it. But health officials actually have given us some advice on things that we can do to protect ourselves or to help fight the virus when it is actually contracted in our bodies, which is something that I did. And it was actually taking zinc and vitamin C and drinking lots of fluids. These things are things that help you fight previous coronavirus or flus, as things that you do when you're being sick, right? You kind of take these as a precautionary and to help build your immune system so that you can fight this virus. So those are the different kinds of things. So we have a prophylaxis and we have a recommended way to treat the virus. But again, make sure you go to your health officials and your doctors to really have some clarifications yourself, as I always recommend. Now, really having protected sex is the same thing as WHO states as having a medical mask. That is the same protection if I'm comparing the two. For HIV, you want to have protected sex. For COVID-19, what we're going to do is we're going to wear a medical mask recommended by the World Health Organization, and that's directly on their site, and you can take a look for that yourself. Now, as we are learning, COVID-19 definitely is scarier and more dangerous than HIV, since we're just getting to know it. My father actually also tested positive for COVID-19 and had respiratory problems as a complication and had to be rushed to the ER. Thank goodness he survived it. He is now back home and is recovering still, because there are lots of side effects. Now, this is where I strongly encourage everyone to please follow the CDC guidelines and having 6 feet apart, as well as wearing your mask, and you will protect yourself a lot more. Well. As my grandfather would say, when it's the end of a night or it's time to leave, I will leave you with these notes. HIV is transmitted through bodily fluids such as blood, semen, rectal, and anal fluids, and breast milk. So make sure you're practicing safe sex. If you would like a prophylaxis like PrEP, always reach out to your health officials who can help you get onto PrEP. And then there's COVID-19. Practicing safe social distancing, since it is noted to be somewhat of an airborne disease with the respiratory droplets in contact and then the surface contacting. So practicing sanitation is very important at this time. So now we know that COVID-19 is more dangerous, and that we need to really look out for each other, and we need to listen to these guidelines, take your own critical thinking for it, but always revert to your medical professionals and then organizations like the World Health Organization, the AIDS Health Organization, and the CDC. These are ways for you to prevent yourself from contracting COVID-19. Thank you so much for listening to my informative speech. My name's Enrique Curiel. You can follow me on Instagram at HeyEnrique with 3 R's, or on Instagram or Facebook, where I'm so glad to help you with getting on PrEP or answering any other questions that I have done. Thank you so much and have a great night.